having spent really, more than 20 years as a CEO, as you outlined, that you've been doing the leadership development work as a strategic advisor and consultant. What would you say if you were talking about some of the traits that really underscore leaders who are being successful in the environment, seeing this as opportunity? What would you say are the things that that would be important? And I'm saying really go beyond the obvious. Like a lot of times when we say what makes a great leader, you hear people often say, well, they have a clear vision, and how to engage teams. And certainly those are important attributes that positional leaders often are tasked to do. I'd like you to go though a level deeper and tell us a little bit, what are the foundational core values and the leadership skills that are required but may not be as obvious to anyone who's thinking about their role as a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot that I've seen floating around that sounds like that, right? Set a clear vision, keep your people engaged, all of that. It's sort of the muscle up, heroic version of leadership. There's also been a lot that's been borrowed from the technology space around, be agile, be nimble. Somehow people are supposed to conjure up innovation, out of their hats. I don't know where it's coming from. But innovation doesn't actually work that way. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. I think the thing I'd say about exceptional leaders in this moment is that they are going to be demonstrating both courage and vulnerability, both strength and empathy. Both moving forward and creating space for people to evaluate and assess where they actually are and deal with that. In other words, I think exceptional leaders will remain calm. Non-anxious is the phrase that we use in our practice in the tensions of the current environment. And there are many tensions. Leaders, a lot of leadership skills and competencies are developed around problem solving. And so leaders are really paying attention to what's the problem and how can I fix it, right? Well, in this environment, the problem is unidentifiable we can't get our hands around it. And we certainly can't solve it. It's beyond the scope of any one leader to do that. So to pretend that we stay in that problem solving mode and hunker down is actually going to be counterproductive over time. Those are the leaders who will flame out. Their organizations will not make it. Or they'll sputter along through this, but I don't see those as the organizations that are going to come out on the other side in a whole and healthy place. Those leaders are the ones that are going to get in their own way pretty quickly.
It's curious, and having experienced this idea of having courage, strength, and also a sense of empathy or vulnerability. Sometimes those sound like diametrically opposing points of view, and
Sure.
Yet when you look at how those two things work in concert, it often creates this space where people follow you because they want to, because there's an attraction to that. Can you speak to that just in a practical sense? When you look at, what are examples of strength or sort of more of that authority or courageous aspect of things, and at the same time, in the space of the unknown, what does the vulnerability or empathy look like as we are in unprecedented waters?
Yeah. Well, I'll borrow or directly quote from a very popular social scientist in my space, and actually she's become popular nationally. Many people know Brene Brown, and she actually did an interview on 60 Minutes this past week. If you haven't seen it, it's worth finding. Very timely considering the world that we're living in. And what Brene would say to this, and I think this is true, her research bears it out. This is not just her opinion or something she thinks about. And I would certainly say in my work, it has proven true as well, is that there is no act of courage that's not preceded by vulnerability, right? And so we cannot actually really embody true courage without first being willing to go to that space of uncertainty and unknowing. And if you look at, she has case studies in her books, and, I won't take the time to do that here, but true courage requires us to be, her favorite quote, and one of mine is from Teddy Roosevelt. It says, it's for the people who are in the arena, right? We go into the arena, we don't know what the battle's going to hold, but we go into the arena as prepared as we can. And yet there's real fear there. So courage is not the absence of fear. courage is acting in the face of that fear, in the face of that vulnerability. And I think that's going to be the characteristic that distinguishes effective leaders. And they're going to be really grounded in reality. I'm watching, as many of us are, on the national stage, and I'm paying attention for the leaders who are exhibiting those qualities right now. And there are a few of them that are standing out, right? I think of Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has become sort of the voice of common reason. He doesn't know everything that's going to happen, but he shows up regularly. He gives you a sense of confidence, right? And comfort, even in the unknown, because he's reality-based. He's dealing from this place of evidence and facts and data, and he's taking us just to the next step of what he knows, right? He's not trying to project out, 6 months from now what's going to happen, because he's a realist. Hopeful realism is what I would call, and that's what he gives us, a sense of hope, but also firmly grounded in reality.
I love it. So that is a quotable takeaway, and it will likely show up in some conversation that I have in the coming days. Hopeful realism.